So anyways, finishing up this last section, in order further to approach this goal, we must make up our mind to accept the fact that the logical basis departs more and more from the facts of experience, and the path of our thought from the fundamental basis to the resulting theorems, which correlate with sense experiences, becomes continually harder and longer. Our aim has been to sketch as briefly as possible the development of the fundamental concepts and their dependence upon the facts of experiments and upon the strife towards the goal of eternal perfection of the system. Today's state of affairs had to be illuminated by these considerations as they appear to me. That's Einstein. And he puts in parenthetical reference, it is unavoidable that historic schematic representation is of a personal color. Einstein, I try to demonstrate how the concepts of bodily objects, space, subjective and objective time, are connected with one another and with the nature of the experience. In classical mechanics, the concepts of space and time become independent. The concept of the bodily object is replaced in the foundations by the concept of the material point. By which means mechanics becomes fundamentally atomistic. Light and electricity produce insurmountable difficulties when one attempts to make mechanics the basic of all physics. We are thus led to the field theory of electricity, and later on to the attempt to base physics entirely upon the concept of the field, parenthetically, after an attempted to compromise with classical mechanics. This attempt leads to the theory of relativity, evolution of the notion of space and time into that of the continuum with metric structure. I try to demonstrate, furthermore, why, in my opinion, the quantum theory does not seem likely to be able to produce a useful foundation for physics. One becomes involved in contradictions if one tries to consider the theoretical quantum description as a complete description of the individual physical system or happening. On the other hand, up to the present time, the field theory is unable to give an explanation of the molecular structure, matter, and of quantum phenomena. It is shown, however, that the conviction to the effect that the field theory is unable to give by its methods a solution of these problems rests upon prejudice. And so Einstein, in this sense, we haven't just read a summary because we read most of the rest of his book with respect to that. And there's a few more chapters about physics, and so he starts right in the next chapter talking about the fundamentals of theoretical physics. Just kind of like we started with that from antiquity, which would be a very important way to get started. That these are the kinds of things that get up into the fundamentals of physics. And so for Einstein, then, he left off in his summary there about physics and reality that he's got a couple of desiderata. One is the continuum mechanics. Two is that relativity is basically a law of nature. And it reflects that otherwise, for some light quantity, there's this speed of light. That's basically the law according to special relativity. That's what governs it. And so that as the fundamental principle as a finite yet arbitrarily large thing that also affects this mass energy equivalency in the rotational, at least, because it leaves out for Fitzgerald and space contraction still that thing where what are centrally symmetrical is the body that's accelerating, the accelerating frame or the decelerating frame. You kind of have to have this coming and becoming and going and ongoing, and these end up needing the bookkeeping that make their field occupation numbers describe the space that they project onto their potential according to dynamics. All this while still that reflects having classical approximation that relativistic theory, as it models the classical, then this superclassical theory models relativistic and classical in dynamics. So the desiderata of a theory is that Einstein's like, here's my physics, and it's a mathematical physics, and it's a you can take it or leave it, but you need to have it for all these things that it goes into. And it depends on these mathematical models so attached to it, and so if you get it wrong, that's at your own risk. And also, please don't, because a lot of people have got it wrong, and they make me look bad. So that's why Einstein spent 30 years later in my career making sure that what I left it with was this, what I could find would be the most consistent reduction in terms. Compared, for example, the original papers over the 10-year period or so from the Annus Mirabilis on into the Introduction to General Relativity. And so Einstein is ushered us into this next era with basically then this parceling. He says, and that is my gift to you. That is my gift to you. And so for this, then what he's going to go on into is like, now you can take off your model of an otherwise ignorant physicist hat, and necessarily otherwise ignorant, because otherwise it would be unscientific to employ the intuition, but at the same time the intuition and the instinct, as Einstein put it, are critical and necessary. Have that. These are the kinds of things that make it so that what contributes to a proper theory involves these kinds of things, whether it's from antiquity and that everybody should have known that, you know. Einstein's like, of course I'm perfectly familiar with this. In fact, I read Heisenberg's book, you know, or and I that may or may not be so, you know. That's an amusement. But there is a theoretical universe where Einstein read Heisenberg's book and immediately recognized it, because everybody already knows the thought experiments of Zeno, and that basically established all our laws of continuity for motion for continuous time as a quantity and a magnitude also, including geometry, our most perfect mathematics. So that said, is Einstein is very, very much so not controversial, his model physicist. But he's a philosopher too, and he also knows that that's where the controversy lays in what establishes this dialectic. But it's also where the truth lays. So that's warming. It feels good. So anyways, I'll continue reading this on about it, but it'll be curious to see what else he has in terms of, otherwise he's delivered, he's gift-wrapped relativity. It's in its consistent, more refined and polished form of his adult and professorial tenured time. And what he gets into then beyond that is like, and now let me tell you about my theory, as he posits theory. Well, all right, I'm not quite sure what the video cut out, and I guess it'll be in 2 parts. Have a great day, and we'll get to reading pretty much the rest of Einstein's chapters on theoretical physics. And it won't take more than a few more sessions. Hey, have a great day. So long.